Everybody, oh, yeah, thank you for recording. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, and good afternoon. I am honored to present my dissertation today called Leading Through Faith, a phenomenological study of Muslim women entrepreneurs, values-based Islamic leadership, and grassroots resistance in the United States. Just a quick note, if you see my face going this way, it's because I literally have my second screen on this side, so I'll be kind of going in between both screens. So don't worry about that. Okay. Now, here's how the next 3 minutes are going to go in this final defense. I'm going to move quickly through chapters 1 through 3. Um, and as you will see, I'm going to go through a few things, significance of the study, the problem statement, things like that. We're going to talk about the literature review. I'm going to talk briefly about the methodology. And chapters 4 and 5 is where you're going to really hear a lot about the findings and the thematic analysis. And I will conclude the study by answering the research questions and introducing the original theoretical framework that I created emerging from the study. And then we'll close out with questions and answers, obviously, as Dr. Hania said afterwards. Now, briefly, I just wanted to talk about, actually, let me go back to my previous slide here, overview of the study. So the overview of the study explores how Muslim women entrepreneurs in the U.S. lead grassroots initiatives rooted in faith, justice, and community care. It I am using a qualitative phenomenological design grounded in 3 theoretical frameworks, which I will obviously discuss a little bit more, but it's intersectionality, Islamic feminist theory, and Muslim critical race theory, which I will refer to as Musgrit. We'll talk about that later. What the study found and what I'll show you today is that for these specific participants, these women, leadership is not separable from faith. Actually, leadership is more of a spiritual resistance and it's a social transformation. So we're going to talk about this. But before we do, let me get into the context of the study. Y'all know who I am. And, before I get into the academic frame, I want to definitely name something. This research isn't just academic for me. This is very personal for me. As a Muslim woman and as someone who's also an entrepreneur who's been working on her own business as a coach, um, I've witnessed in my own life and in my community and in my professional spaces just how our leadership gets overlooked, how it gets flattened or misread. And this study is my attempt to amplify these voices of Muslim women who lead with faith, integrity, and purpose, and to challenge the narratives that have defined us from the outside in. Now, before I begin, I want to thank my wonderful chair and committee. Let me hold on. Okay. I want to thank my wonderful chair and committee, obviously, Dr. Hania, who was just speaking earlier. Thank you for the support. In all honesty, I don't think I would have been able to even do this without that love and support from you. It took me like 2 years just to try to figure out what I wanted to talk about. And in the midst of it, 3 years ago, exactly 3 years ago this month, I lost my mom. So when I lost my mom, I just didn't even want to do anything. I didn't want to deal with the dissertation. I didn't want to handle anything. And Dr. Hania was there for me as a sounding board and just, not only even just as a sounding board, as a professor, as a chair, but also has become such a wonderful friend of mine. So I'm pleased, to have you as my chair, Dr. Hania. And Dr. Amanda, I've known you for years, and I'm just so excited that you're on my committee. And Dr. Sonia, both of you are phenomenal women and have made such an amazing impact. And I know that this dissertation that I've worked on is just something that I know you would all also relate with. And to have you on my committee, to get your feedback, to have you be a part of this journey with me has been an incredible honor. So I just want to say thank you so much. And also thank you to all my friends who are here, who are like family, and to the 12 women who have trusted me with their stories. So let's get into chapter 1. Background and overview of the study. So very briefly, I just want to say that Muslim women are profoundly underrepresented in leadership and entrepreneurship literature. When they've appeared in literature and just based on everything I've seen, the dominant narratives have often been Islamophobic, reductive, or Western-centric. And so it's really important that this study that I've put together repositions them as what they are: spiritual, justice-driven, and community-rooted leaders and entrepreneurs. This statement of the problem. Okay, now there's three different problems in the statement. Number one, there's a persistent misrepresentation of women, of Muslim women in the United States, in both in the literature, in academia, and the scholarship, and just in general, especially with everything that's happening today. Second, the limited research on faith-informed leadership from an Islamic lens. And third, the gap in understanding Muslim women entrepreneurs as actual grassroots leaders, where the entrepreneurial role and the community leadership role are actually very inseparable. Now, I just want to note that my data collection ran from November 2025 through February 2026 during a documented historic surge in Islamophobia. Clearly, there's been a lot of issues going on just with the current war that we're dealing with, and the misrepresentation of Muslims in general. And so I just wanted to mention that CARE it has recorded 8,061 anti-Muslim companies in complaints. I don't know why I said companies. Complaints in 2023 and 8,658 complaints in 2024 alone. That was the highest in 3 decades. And imagine what it could be today in 2026. And just recently, I'm sure most of you have heard what just happened in San Diego just a few days ago. We just had a whole tragedy, and it was a hate crime. Again, because of what's been going on lately, we unfortunately lost three very important pillars of the community, of our Muslim community, because of this senseless hate crime, because of the shootings that have happened. So this is just an example of what's happening today, and that's why I believe this research is definitely something that is very well needed at this time. So, of course, the purpose of the study is threefold. Number one, to explore the lived experiences of Muslim women entrepreneurs and how they grow communities through grassroots leadership, to examine how faith, identity, and justice inform their work, and ultimately to develop a values-driven leadership framework grounded in Islamic principles. Now, you will see the model I produced that I'll share with you in chapter 5. Okay. Now, these are the research questions. I'm not going to dive too deep into it right now. We're going to talk about it when I get into chapter 3, 4, and 5. So now we're in chapter 2, which is the literature review. I'm just going to briefly discuss the literature review and what I did here. I did look up quite a lot of literature regarding Muslim women in the West and noticed that there's been a domination of just, oppression, voicelessness, and submissiveness. Post 9/11, these frames have become very hardened into Islamophobic narratives that still shape media policy and literature today. But what I want to mention is the intersectionality, identity, and resistance. Muslim women in the US navigate multiple systems of marginalization at once. So that's gender, race, religion, and for many immigrant or refugee experiences, they experience this. Women in general, women in leadership in general already deal with, they already deal with the double bind, the glass cliff, the glass ceiling, you name it, women in general deal with it. But Muslim women particularly, I think, deal with it in a more, it's double for them. So if someone's experiencing the glass ceiling, imagine that 2 times over for a Muslim woman who's trying to get up in the leadership role. So just an example of what it is that Muslim women have to face. And so the conceptual move that this study makes is faith, identity, and entrepreneurship are not separate either. And so for these women, specifically the participants that I also talked to, they're integrated tools of resistance and empowerment, spiritual integrity, and economic agency, which all move together. So these are the key literature gaps. This is what's missing from the current literature that I would love for my study to actually include in future literature. Number one, Muslim women are either excluded from leadership and entrepreneurship research, or they're tokenized within it. We have dominant narratives that either silence or flatten their voices. There's faith-informed leadership models from an Islamic lens that is rarely explored in the US-based scholarship. And number four, finally, there's a lack of intersectional and decolonial frameworks that can hold the full complexity of Muslim women's lived realities. And so this study does address all four. So we're going to get right into the chapter 3 really quickly. This is a qualitative phenomenological research design in which I interviewed 12 women to get their lived experiences, their identity and their leadership and the meanings that I wanted to get from them, meaning making. The justification is that phenomenology centers participants' voices and meaning making. The research and interview questions are here. I'm just going to go through the research questions, and in chapter 4, as I will show you, we will actually go through each interview question. So first interview question is how do Muslim women entrepreneurs in the United States perceive and experience their roles as grassroots leaders within the intersecting contexts of faith, gender, and systemic marginalization? Three interview questions were asked that corresponded to this research question. Research question 2 asks, in what ways do Muslim women entrepreneurs engage in faith-informed business practices that resist cultural stereotypes, Islamophobic narratives in contemporary U.S. society? And Islamophobic narratives in contemporary U.S. society. Again, these three interview questions that you see are correlating to research question 2, which were asked of my participants. Research question 3, how do Muslim women entrepreneurs describe the influence of Islamic values on their leadership approaches, community engagement, and business decision-making processes? And so these were the last 4 interview questions that were asked of my participants. I don't know why I'm saying ours, sorry about that, of my participants. And so the data analysis that I used to analyze the interviews. So when I got the interviews completed, I transcribed the interviews. That means I had to extract the text from those interviews to actually find keywords and themes. And that follows Braun and Clark's 6-phase thematic analysis, which is the familiarization with the data, generating initial codes, searching for themes, reviewing themes, defining and naming themes, and producing the actual report, which is the data analysis. And I did manual coding for the most part. All the codes aligned with research questions and emerging insights. Now we're going to get into chapter 4. So we're finally going to get into the meat of this. Research question 1 asked, again, how do Muslim women entrepreneurs in the United States perceive and experience their roles as grassroots leaders within the intersecting context of faith, gender, and systemic marginalization? All right, well, here are the interview questions. We're going to go through it each one by one, starting with the first interview question. But again, so before I even began this, I had a total of 12 participants. Although I wanted to get 15 participants, I reached saturation at 12. And so there are 10 interview questions total and a total of about 50 themes. So again, I'm going to walk you through each interview question right now and name the themes, the patterns, and some of the participants' own words. And then at the end, I'll bring it together with the 4 meta themes that I found across the entire data set. All right. So the first interview question asked, can you describe your journey into entrepreneurship and what motivated you to pursue this path? These were the qualitative results for interview question 1. Now, interview question 1, the 5 themes that came up were, number 1, desire for autonomy and alignment with the values, adversity as catalyst for entrepreneurship, divine calling and spiritual motivation, mission-driven purpose beyond profit, family legacy, and entrepreneurial socialization. These were the first 5 themes for interview question 1. The strongest at 92% was the desire for autonomy and alignment with values at 92%. So approximately nearly all participants, 11 out of 12, expressed the desire to operate according to their own values. The second one at 75%, there was 2 at 75%, adversity as catalyst for entrepreneurship and the divine calling and spiritual motivation. These 2 appeared quite a bit in the same story. Hardship came, and then the faith reframed it as direction. And a good example is my second participant, participant two, said this, quote unquote, in her words. My body just kind of gave up and I ended up blacking out at work. My doctors basically told me that your illness has progressed so much that you can't work anymore. And I pivoted instead of sulking, and it became almost therapeutic for me. And she later described the same autoimmune illness as, and I'll quote her directly, Allah, God, blessed me with an autoimmune disease because that is what led her to her business purpose. And if you think about it, that really is the entire data set in a miniature. Two-thirds described entering entrepreneurship for mission and not for money. That's about 8 out of 12 participants. For example, participant 12 created her Islamic marketplace specifically to give Muslim vendors a space. She donated whatever ticket revenue she was receiving from that market to the Palestinian Children Relief Fund for Palestinian relief from day one. So she wanted to make sure from the minute that she began this business that she was putting this money towards a mission, which was for the Children's Relief Fund. Half of these participants, 5 out of 12, actually grew up in entrepreneurial households. And so entrepreneurship was already in their blood. That's about 5 out of 12. And so for them, it was a normal thing to have a business. Now, this is a frequency bar chart for the first interview question. As you can see from the bar chart, the main theme, desire for autonomy and alignment with values, and the theme with the least amount was family, legacy, and entrepreneurial socialization. Either way, they're all important. Every theme is important. So just because one theme is a little bit more of a count than others doesn't mean that they're not important. They're all equally important in this situation and in this case. All right. Interview question 2. Give me a second. I need to drink something. All right. Interview question 2. How do you see yourself as a leader in your business or community? Here are the qualitative results for interview question 2. Again, 5 themes. We had servant leadership and people first orientation, mentorship and role modeling, community building and creating inclusive spaces, expert authority and knowledge leadership, and grassroots activism and social advocacy. Of these, servant leadership was the main. 11 out of 12, or 92%, identified with servant leadership as their primary style. Participant 11 in particular she said it in Arabic that she translated into English, saying the leader of any people is their servant. And then she said, I've come to learn and understand that in business and in community, to be a good leader, you have to serve people. Participant 2 put it as this physical posture of, I'm in the boat steering with you. I'm not delegating from above. 10 out of 12, or 83%, named mentorship and role modeling. For example, participant 1 said, I feel this store is a living example of what our community is capable of, and I pray not only for my success, but for the success I've had others to have. Now, 3/4 spoke about community building. So that's 9 out of 12 participants, or 75%. They talked about building community spaces and support networks, which was a consistent leadership theme throughout for them. For the other 2, just over half centered specialized expertise, so expert authority and knowledge. About 7 out of 12 participants, or 58%, frequently described leadership through the lens of specialized expertise. The half extended the leadership into direct grassroots activism. So, for example, participant 7 founded the Maryland Neighbors Against Genocide and organized congressional advocacy trips. So that is an example of expert authority and leadership and grassroots activism and social advocacy, actually, because they extended their leadership into direct social and political advocacy. So that's just a good example of that. And so we have the next bar chart: servant, mentorship, community, expertise, and activism descending in order. Question 3 asks, and again, this is still part of research question 1. What challenges have you encountered as a Muslim woman entrepreneur in the US, particularly related to gender, race, or religion? Here are the qualitative results for the third question. Now, the third question, the 5 themes that came up were gender discrimination and patriarchal barriers, intra-community resistance and a lack of Muslim support, Islamophobia and religious discrimination, lack of faith-aligned mentorship and coaching, and finally, work-life balance and faith-work integration. Gender discrimination led at 92%, 11 out of 12 described this. This was actually expected in my perspective. Participant 1 actually described a male customer who came into her boutique and told her women couldn't handle the stress of a business. And her response was, I painted these walls. I put up this wallpaper. I designed everything in this store myself. And he was left speechless, according to her. Now, here was something that I didn't really quite expect, and what I think became one of the most important findings of this study was inter-community resistance and lack of Muslim support. About 83%, 10 out of 12 participants, 83% named intra-community resistance, lack of support from within the Muslim community itself. Participant 2 called it a double-edged sword by saying working with your own community has been such a double-edged sword. The same community that we're trying to uplift, these are the same people who ask, can I have a discount? Can I have this? Can I have that? They're not being supportive. That's a challenge I face big time. Now, this was from participant 2. Now, participant 5 named the cultural piece directly and said, there is judgment, especially when you're a Muslim woman talking openly about your business and your money. Some people in our own community are not comfortable seeing Muslim women claim their professional identity publicly. Now, for many participants, this intra-community resistance was equal or more challenging than external Islamophobia, and external Islamophobia and religious discrimination was 9 out of 12 participants, or 75% of the participants that actually reported direct experiences with Islamophobia. I actually had a participant, I believe, participant 7. She said that her name is on a watch list because her last name is Arab. And so that's the reason why, which I thought was really interesting to put because she experienced it in that way. And that's a lot of Muslims are facing that right now. Name profiling, which is another thing that she talked about. 2/3 described a lack of faith-aligned mentorship. 58% spoke about a difficulty of integrating prayer, family, and work. So 67%, let's go back to faith-aligned mentorship and coaching. 67% of the participants, that's about 8 out of 12, said a significant structural challenge was the absence of mentors who understood both entrepreneurship and Islamic values. And that is actually a big deal in our communities, right? Work-life balance and faith-work integration. About 7 out of 12 participants, or 58%, said that they dealt with this, having to balance entrepreneurship with Islamic practice and family responsibilities. So these are just some of the challenges that they faced. And of course, here's the bar chart that shows the frequency from largest to smallest, with gender discrimination and patriarchal barriers coming in at 11 out of 12, and 7 out of 12 participants talking about work-life balance. Okay. Now we're going to go on to research question 2. Research question 2 again asked, in what ways do Muslim women entrepreneurs engage in faith-informed business practices that resist cultural stereotypes and Islamophobic narratives in contemporary U.S. society? These were the 3 interview questions that I asked my participants to get the data from them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk right into interview question 4. Interview question 4 asks, how does your Islamic faith influence the way you run your business? So these are the themes and findings from interview question 4. Ethical business practices and halal finance. Ihsan, which means excellence and quality as a spiritual obligation. Tawakkul. Tawakkul means trust in Allah, trust in God, and non-attachment to outcomes. Service as worship, which is in Arabic called ibadah. And the golden rule, compassionate client relations. Okay, now 100% of the participants answered ethical business practices and halal finance to this question, that their Islamic faith influences the way they run their business by making sure that they are practicing ethics. This is a non-negotiable. Participant 2 said it most directly. My Islamic faith is the foundation of every move, every word, every single action that I perform in this world. I am a Muslim first before I am an entrepreneur, before I am anything. I don't want to take out a loan, buy flour with haram money, and then feed people cookies with it. It gets that deep for me. And participant 7 refused insurance entirely. She is an acupuncturist, and she refused insurance, saying, I don't turn anyone away if they can't pay. That's part of my oath and part of my faith. I try to keep my income halal. Halal means for those of you who don't know what halal means, it means that it is done, in ethics and ethical form of getting income. It's a cash-based practice, and it's not the best model for growing a business, but it's the only model I'm willing to operate. Now, with ihsan, excellence as a quality and as a spiritual obligation, this Islamic concept of doing things with excellence as if Allah or God is watching shaped how participants, 9 out of 12, 75%, approached their work. Tawakkul, trust in God and non-attachment to outcomes, is also led into this. Belief in divine provision, which in Arabic is called rizq, and trust in God's plan gave participants, 9 out of 12, of course, 75%, resilience in the face of business setbacks. Keywords here were tawakkul and trusting in Allah that I thought were really important as part of this theme. God's will, letting go of the outcome, the risk is written, or the abundance is written. Participant 6, a physician, described herself as a tool through which God heals people, and the golden rule, the compassionate client relations, treating clients as you would wish to be treated. Participant 6 said, if it were my father, this is what I would do. If it were my mother, this is what I would do. Truly, that's how I operate. Now, this is where we see Islamic ethics functioning as a complete business operating system, per this interview question. Here's a frequency bar chart, and you can see across most of this 100% on ethical business practices and 9 across all the way. 4 themes clustered at 9. Okay, so interview question 5. Have you ever felt the need to challenge stereotypes or misconceptions about Muslim women through your work? All right. These are the results for interview question 5. Have you ever felt the need to challenge stereotypes or misconceptions about Muslim women through your work? The 5 themes were embodied resistance, existence as counter-narrative, professional competence dismantling Muslim women's stereotypes, advocacy for Muslim women's entrepreneurship and independence, challenging internal Muslim community stereotypes, and countering the oppressed Muslim woman narrative. Embodied resistance and 92%, which means 11 out of 12 participants said the descriptions, the most prominent theme was participants' descriptions of their mere visibility as an act of resistance against stereotypes. For many participants, just existing and challenging stereotypes based on who they are embodied that resistance. Participant 8 specifically said to me, I don't think it's my responsibility to challenge or educate anybody because it's hard enough just to exist. In terms of where I'm at right now, I think that my just existing is the radical part. Now, participant 6 described it with a smile. She said, when I walk into a room, I challenge the stereotypes already. I can see their neurons. I can hear their neurons exploding. 83% named professional competence as the most powerful counter-stereotype tool. Now, participant 12 described proving to skeptical male venue operators that women could manage logistics for thousands of people. Excellence dismantled assumption here. About 3/4 or 9 out of 12 participants challenged cultural stereotypes that confine Muslim women to domestic roles. Participant 1 in particular invoked Khadija, which was our Prophet, peace be upon him's first wife, Stialanha, directly saying, you remember the story of Khadija, the Prophet's wife, peace be upon him. She had her own business and employed people. It's like that. 3/4 also identified the Muslim community itself as a source of stereotyping, and 58% explicitly countered the Western oppressed Muslim women narrative. Participant 4, in particular, navigated clients who saw her hijab. Hijab is the head covering, for those of you who don't know, and asked if she was being forced to wear it while continuing to do excellent work. Here are the bar chart, is the bar chart for IQ5 from in this descending order. It is visible in the chart. Now, IQ6 asked, do you think that your presence as a Muslim woman entrepreneur sends a message to others? And if so, what do you think that message is? 5 themes emerged: possibility and representation for future Muslim women. Islam as strength, not a liability. Authenticity without compromise. Women can be fully Muslim and fully professional. And finally, community inspiration and ripple effect. Now, all 100% of my participants said that yes, they believe that their presence sent a message of possibility to other Muslim women. Participant 1 particularly told me, my presence sends a motivational message to other women about what they're capable of doing, not just the Muslim community, but all communities. You can have a sense of style, you can still be modest, you can still be Muslim, and you can still look good too. 10 out of 12, or about 83%, consistently frame their Muslim identity as a professional and personal asset, not a liability. Participant 6 said to me, to non-Muslim people, it's again like, whoa, they see whatever they thought of a Muslim woman, they were wrong. And even if they were partially wrong, that's also a win. 2/3 emphasize authenticity without compromise. 2/3 is 8 out of 12 participants, or 66%. And participant 4, I think, said it really well. Possibility without compromise. You don't have to dilute who you are to be taken seriously. Now, 42%, or 5 out of 12, talked about community inspiration and ripple effect, because in that one, they were talking about how they've been inspiring others. And by being inspirational in their community, it's becoming a ripple effect because other women are able to see what it is that they're doing and motivating them to do the same. Here's a frequency bar chart for IQ6 across descending order. Okay, now we are in research question 3. So research question 3 says, or asked, how do Muslim women entrepreneurs describe the influence of Islamic values on their leadership approaches, community engagement, and business decision-making processes? We're going to get right into these 4 questions. So IQ7, or interview question 7, that I asked the participants said, what Islamic values guide your leadership or business decision-making processes? Here are the qualitative results for interview question 7. My participants answered, and 5 of these themes were Siddiq, which is honesty and truthfulness, Adl, which is justice and fairness in all dealings. Again, these are Arabic words, which I'm defining. Sabr, which means patience and long-term perspective. Ihsan, which means excellence and consciousness of God, so God consciousness. And Shura, which means consultation and collaborative leadership. Siddiq, or honesty, was the most universally named Islamic value, appearing in pretty much every participant's interview. It was 100 out of 100. Participant 6 put this in life and death terms. Honesty is the overriding principle. I will tell you the truth in good times and in bad. I will tell you when something is not working. I will tell you when a patient is dying so they can prepare. That honesty comes from my faith, and it's a non-negotiable. With Adl, which means justice, at 92%, 11 out of 12 participants, participant 11 specifically gave an example of a customer wanting an item overnighted, and during the conversation, she realized that the customer was buying it for a ritual to keep her boyfriend. When she heard this, participant 11 gently and kindly refused the sale. That's Adl, or justice and fairness, as a daily operating decision. Sabr, which is again patience, was described by 9 out of 12 participants, or 75%, as both a leadership value and a competitive advantage. Participant 1 said she built her boutique through 4.5 years of pop-ups before she opened a physical store. She described patience as the daily discipline of trusting in God's timing instead of feeding self-doubt, which she called feeding Satan. Ihsan, or excellence as if God is watching, God consciousness, at 75%. Um, the value of ihsan, performing every act as if God is watching, elevated business performance from ordinary professionalism to spiritual practice. Participant 11 actually said this. She cited a saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, directly, that God loves, or Allah loves, that if somebody does something, that they do it with excellence. And she said that that saying guides everything for her. Finally, with Shura consultation and collaborative leadership, 58% of the participants answered this. They discussed that it shaped their leadership styles towards collaboration over hierarchy. Participant 9 in general said, when you're doing decision-making processes, you're using service, compassion, and reasonableness. Shura and consultation, so being able to consult, is big for me. Participant 3 added a beautiful dimension here. She also said that she consults God through prayer, specifically through a special prayer that Muslims do, which is called Salatul Istikhara. It is a prayer of asking for God's counsel and consulting before doing any task. So in her case, she said that she did this before any major business decision. Now, I want you to hold these 6 values in your mind as we go through the remainder of these questions, because they do become the value layer of the framework that I'm going to introduce to all of you in chapter 5, okay? All right, now this is the bar chart. Again, Siddiq at 12, Adil at 11, Sabr and Ihsan tied at 9, and Shura at 7. Interview question 8 asked, how do you engage with your local community through your business, and does your faith influence this involvement? The qualitative results here were 5: mosque and Islamic organization partnerships, zakat, which means charitable giving and community fundraising, professional skill sharing and capacity building, creating Muslim-centered economic spaces, and advocacy and social justice work. So the mosque is the bridge for 10 out of 12 of these participants at 83%. Several participants stated that mosque pop-ups actually help them with being able to not only engage with their local community, but also to begin their businesses. Participant 2 described a moment of prayer that shifted her business trajectory to me. She said to me, I was praying to Allah and I asked specifically in my prayer, in my dua, that God, please continue to pour barakah means blessings in Arabic, blessings into my business, and please align my business with my community. And praise be to God, it happened. I was able to start working with our local community, and it's been such a beautiful experience. Now, 2/3, or 8 out of the 12 participants at 67%, said that they integrated zakat and zakat charity, directly. Participant 7 founded Doctors Against Genocide in Maryland, Neighbors Against Genocide, saying that my community engagement is not separate from my business. It's the reason I'm in business. Serving my community is an act of worship. 2/3 used their professional expertise as community service. Participant 4 provided free resume and interview prep for reverts at her masjid, at her local mosque. And participant 9 said that she was funding a dialysis clinic in Pakistan and student scholarships. 58%, which 58% said that they created Muslim-centered economic spaces, and half described their work as advocacy and social justice. Community engagement here is not a marketing strategy, it's a religious obligation, which means it is a service to the Muslim community, or as we call it, the Ummah. Here's a frequency bar chart for interview question 8. Mosque partnerships at the top, then the charity, skill sharing, and then Muslim-centered spaces, and then advocacy. Interview question 9. How would you describe your leadership style, and how has it evolved as a Muslim woman? So here are the 5 themes that came out: servant leadership and humility, transformational leadership through Islamic growth, resilient and steadfast leadership under pressure, evolving from directive to empathetic leadership, and collaborative and consensus building leadership. Servant leadership and humility was at 92%. Participant 1 described her leadership goal in striking terms. My goal is for customers to mistake my employees for the business owner. That is the leadership I aspire to. Participant 6 said to me, I describe my leadership as altruistic, as servant-oriented. I'm not doing this for recognition. I'm doing this because these patients need care. This community needs advocacy. And I am one of the few people who can provide it. This is both a privilege and a responsibility. Transformational leadership through Islamic growth was at 83%. Participant 8 specifically captured this by saying, I have cultivated my values enough to know what I'm looking for in clients, in partners, in collaborators, in collaborations. That clarity has come through my growth as a Muslim woman. Resilient and steadfast leadership is at 75%. Participant 6 again said, you make your intention with God, and that is all you have to do. How it happens is for Him. I have evolved to trust that. Two themes that are tied at 58% were evolving from directive to empathetic leadership and collaborative and consensus building leadership, which means about 7 out of 12 participants. They discussed evolving from directive to empathetic and collaborative consensus building. Participant 2 described it as, I'm in the boat steering with you, not sitting in the back. God directed me to this. You came to me because God knew I could help you, so now I go 100%. Now, if you notice the pattern, these are not separate styles. Actually, they come together. Servant, fate-driven, transformational, grounded resilience, and consensus-building leadership. These are all coherent leadership signatures from the faith. Here is the frequency bar chart for interview question 9. And then we have finally interview question 10. We're almost done with chapter 4. What advice would you give to other Muslim women aspiring to lead or start their businesses in today's social and political climate? Now, every participant, 100%, said strengthen your spiritual foundation first. We had a near universal theme with 11 out of 12 participants, or 93%, saying be boldly visible and unapologetically Muslim. 10 out of 12 participants, or 83%, said just start, action over perfection. 10 out of 11, 83%, said find and build community and support networks. And again, 75%, or 9 out of 10 participants, said embrace hardship as growth and a spiritual gift. Now, participant 1, when we talked about strengthening your spiritual foundation, participant 1 said, do it for God. Number 1, do it for God. 92% said, be boldly visible and unapologetically Muslim. Participant 2 said, it's our duty to be present. It's our duty to be visible. And participant 1 said, don't listen to the noise around you. Be unstoppable. If I had listened to my family, friends, and community when I was starting, I would never be here. Would the 83% that said just start, action over perfection, participant 1 said, this is one of my favorite stories from the entire data set, I have to tell you, because she said that she described her store as having been born of a spontaneous call to a landlord at a traffic light. She wrote a business plan that she had never written before. She said she submitted it with, in the name of God, Bismillah, and waited. And she said that this is tawakkul, or trust in God as practice, not theory. She just said, just do it, just do it, just do it. Now, another 83% said, find and build community. Participant 2 said, your vibe will attract your tribe. And 75% offered the most distinctly Islamic reframe, which is to embrace hardship as growth. Participant 4 quoted the Quran, the holy book that Muslims read directly. With hardship comes ease. God says this twice because there's more ease than hardship. This is the frequency bar chart for interview question 10. Now, I wanted to discuss some cross-theme synthesis because this is where I want to discuss how saturation was completed and the meta themes. Because again, I wanted to interview 15, but after interviewing about 10 participants, I started to notice saturation. Then I did 2 more to interview 12 participants total and noticed 100% saturation. Across all 10 interviews, 4 meta themes consistently emerged, regardless of the specific question that represented the core phenomenological essence of Muslim women's entrepreneurial existence or experience. Saturation was confirmed across all 10 interview questions. The same core themes recurred with negligible new variations by the final 2 to 3 interviews, consistent with Braun and Clark's and Cresswell. Now, I originally, like I said, wanted to do 15, but I believe that this data has so much information that is why saturation was reached. Here are the meta themes that we're going to talk about. Meta theme 1, faith as infrastructure, Islamic values. Ihsan, adl, sabr, tawakkul. Excellence, justice, honesty, patience, and trust in God were not aspirational. They're operational. They're a daily practice. Uh, they are what shape the hiring of their employees, shaping the pricing, client communications, responses to anything that happens when there's a failure. So failure, response to failure, faith was the load-bearing structure. It was not the decoration. So they literally had to leave with faith. Meta Team 2, identity as resistance. Now, simply being visible, successful Muslim and a woman was for these participants just an act of resistance against external Islamophobia and against internal cultural constraints within the Muslim communities. Meta Team 3, community as purpose. Entrepreneurship was rarely framed as personal financial activity. The business served a community mission, and profit was a means, not an end. Participant 2 said, every dollar her business made advocated, inspired, and built community. Participant 12 donated her market revenue to the Children's Relief Fund. Meta theme number 4, hardship as a spiritual curriculum. This is the most distinctive finding. Systemic discrimination, community resistance, and personal hardship. None of it was framed as failure. Now that's important to know. None of it was framed as failure according to these participants. It was reframed through Islam, through their faith, as evidence of God's care and preparation. The trial is not the obstacle. The trial is the curriculum. So these are the 4 themes that is what is going to be built on chapter 5. So we're now going to be in the final chapter, which is the conclusions and recommendations, implications, and the framework. A brief introduction to chapter 5. Muslim women, again, have been consistently misrepresented in media, policy, and academic discourse. And this study has addressed the gaps that I discussed earlier by centering Muslim women entrepreneurs and examining how their faith fuels their leadership and stereotypes that they encounter and the success they achieve despite layered adversity. We went through the 3 research questions. We went through all of the themes for chapter 4. And now we're going to go ahead and discuss. Now, there were 50 themes across the 10 interview questions, each of these organized by 3 research questions. We just discussed the meta themes. We just discussed the universal saturation. I'm going to get right into the summary of RQ1. Now, research question 1, again, to reiterate, it asked, how do Muslim women entrepreneurs in the United States perceive and experience their roles as grassroots leaders within the intersecting context of faith, gender, and systemic marginalization? Now, to summarize, Muslim women entrepreneurs describe their leadership as established in divine calling, mission-driven purpose, and a deep commitment to community building and mentorship. Participants consistently navigated layered adversity, including gender discrimination, Islamophobia, intra-community resistance, and the absence of faith-aligned mentorship, yet they sustained their leadership through spiritual grounding and values-based practice. 2 findings here stand out, though. First, the intra-community resistance was identified by 10 out of the 12 participants as equally or more challenging than external Islamophobia. That challenges the dominant deficient framing in the literature. And second, the absence of faith-aligned mentorship is a real structural gap. Participants described existing coaching and mentorship programs as culturally misaligned with their Islamic leadership orientation. Summary of research question 2. Research question 2 asked, in what ways do Muslim women entrepreneurs engage in faith-informed business practices that resist cultural stereotypes and Islamophobic narratives in contemporary U.S. society? Now, to answer this, the summary is that participants described faith-based informed practice as functioning simultaneously as an ethical framework and a form of cultural and political resistance. Their businesses were not separate from their faith, but an expression of it. Islamic ethics was not aspirational ideals, but daily operational standards. Now, all 12 participants described halal finance and ethical business practices as non-negotiables, regardless of financial cost. Simply showing up as just being visible, successful Muslim women entrepreneurs was described by 11 out of 12 participants as an act of resistance. Their existence was a counter-narrative. Participants rejected the oppressed Muslim women narrative, not through argument, but through action, building businesses, leading communities, and refusing to minimize their Islamic identity in professional spaces. RQ3, RQ3 asked again, how do Muslim women entrepreneurs describe the influence of Islamic values on their leadership approaches, community engagement, and business decision-making processes? To summarize, Islamic values function as the operational infrastructure of participants' leadership, which we discussed earlier, which was Siddiq, honesty, justice, excellence, patience, and consultation, and compassion, described as active daily practices shaping every significant business and community decision. Community engagement was not a marketing strategy. It was a religious obligation rooted in service to the community, expressed through mosque partnerships, charitable giving, advocacy, and the creation of Muslim-centered economic spaces. Now, servant leadership and humility were the most universally described styles. 11 out of 12 participants described leading from behind rather than from above, empowering others as a spiritual practice. And participants' collective advice to future Muslim women entrepreneurs was unanimous. Strengthen your spiritual foundation first. Be boldly visible and unapologetically Muslim, and just start. Now we're going to talk about the theoretical frameworks. I used three complementary frameworks that provided the analytical lens through which these participant experiences were interpreted. Number one, intersectionality theory, which was by Crenshaw. Participants' experiences are not shaped by a single axis of identity, but by the simultaneous intersection of gender, religion, race, and professional identity. The intra-community resistance finding, documented by 10 out of 12 participants, is in itself an intersectional phenomenon produced by patriarchal norms, cultural norms, religious expectations, and gendered professional marginalization operating together. No single framework alone could explain what these women navigated. It was layering of identities that produced their specific form of layered adversity. Second is the Islamic feminist theory. The Islamic feminist theory is where participants consistently distinguished between cultural constraints and Islamic values. Culture was the source of restriction, Islam was the liberating framework. That's the core theological move Islamic feminist theory makes. Participants' invocations of inspirational Muslim women from our past, such as Khadija, the wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as proof that Islam affirms women's right to lead, reflect the theological reinterpretation that Islamic feminist theory centers. Third, the Muslim critical race theory. In this theory, participant experiences reflected all 6 tenets of Muskrat, which is the Muslim critical race theory: systemic Islamophobia, racialized identifiability, gendered mediation of racialization, counter-narrative resistance, and others. Muskrat's explanatory power originally developed in educational contexts, which extends robustly into entrepreneurial and professional leadership spaces. This study demonstrates that Muskrat applies to Muslim women's entrepreneurial experiences in the United States. And of course, I'd argue that its framework is the field that it's the framework that was needed to make sense of how Islam gets racialized in professional contexts. I also wanted to briefly describe why this was added. This was added because this was an evolution of my theoretical framework. The study was originally grounded in intersectionality and Islamic feminist theory. These were the frameworks identified during the proposal phase. As the literature review and the data analysis deepened, a gap emerged. Neither framework fully accounted for the racialization of Muslim religious identity in professional spaces. Participants' experiences of surveillance, religious discrimination, and identity-based marginalization didn't quite fit. Something was missing. So for me, when I added Muskrat, which was developed by Dr. Noor Ali in 2022, that addressed the gap. And I added it during the analysis because the data really spoke on it. And the decision reflects for me a commitment to letting the data guide theoretical decisions rather than forcing the data into a pre-decided frame. And I believe that this really added a commitment to allowing the data to guide the theoretical decisions here. Now, this is going to be my framework that I'm excited to present to all of you. The theory of values-based Islamic leadership with the local resilience mechanism. This came from 2 gaps. The first gap was existing leadership frameworks: servant leadership, authentic leadership, transformational leadership, ethical leadership. These are all secular and Western. They don't account for theocentric accountability, faith-grounded motivation, or community as an ummah obligation. They share some surface similarities with what the participants described, but they don't capture the foundation. The second gap was existing resilience frameworks. Grit, self-efficacy, post-traumatic growth, these are all ego-centered. These locate resilience in the individual self. But what the participants described was resilience that operates through divine partnership. Now, here, the theory of values-based Islamic leadership um, comes as a macro, describes what the Islamic values-based leadership looks like in practice with three defining characteristics, and then the six core values. And then level two is the micro, which describes how that leadership is sustained under layered adversity and the five functions of tawakkul, or the trust in God. This is the overlap. I created a table just to kind of show these are the current leadership frameworks that we have, which are great. But there's an overlap, obviously, with the theory of values-based Islamic leadership that I came up with, in which the key distinctions are here. For example, the TVBIL grounds servant orientation and religious obligation rather than humanistic philosophy. It grounds authenticity and God consciousness rather than psychological concept. Operates through divine purpose rather than charismatic influence. Community equals the ummah. Um, the TVBIL's ethics are theocentric and non-negotiable, not consequentialist or stakeholder calculated. And finally, the model that I created is specifically Islamic. It's not generically spiritual. Values are precisely named and jurisprudently grounded. Now, this is my theories of values-based Islamic leadership. As you can see here, theocentric accountability, God serves as the primary ethical floor for all leadership and business decisions. Community as obligation, leadership rooted in service to the community as an expanded constituency. Values as operational infrastructure. Islamic values functioning as the daily decision-making system. Now, these are the three. Along with these are the six core Islamic values. Again, honesty and justice as the foundational relational values. The ihsan and sabr, excellence and patience as the standards of practice and endurance. And finally, consultation and compassion, shura and rahma, consultation and compassion as the relational and communal values. The tawakkul resilience mechanism here are the five functions that sustain Islamic values-based leadership under layered adversity. Effort outcome decoupling, failure reframing as divine redirection, for fear permeability, non-ego motivational foundation, and theologically extended time horizons. These are the implications of the study, basically, for Muslim women entrepreneurs, that you can absolutely, the study basically says that Muslim women don't need to translate their Islamic values into Western leadership vocabulary to be taken seriously as leaders. They can be leaders in the leadership that they currently have. And the model that I have validates and names what Muslim women have practiced. And that tawakkul, or trust in God, is a resilience resource that can't be replicated. Mentorship and coaching. Generic coaching and mentorship programs don't account for faith-based dimensions of Muslim women's leadership. And so therefore, it would be good to have programs serving Muslim women entrepreneurs that are designed with Islamic values and faith-informed coaching models that are grounded in the theory of values-based Islamic leadership, representing a needed and currently absent resource for this population. And finally, for higher education, also for students to be able to learn the different forms of leadership curricula and theoretical alternatives. Recommendations, expanding this model geographically and looking into Muslim women entrepreneurs in Muslim majority countries. Maybe more broader population testing could happen in order for this to continue going. Framework should be expanded to include Muslim women in higher education, Muslim men in entrepreneurship. Maybe it would be a good idea to have a comparative study to examine whether Muslim male entrepreneurs operate from the same values-based framework. And so, of course, there's more recommendations for future research, but I know I'm running out of time already. But just kind of saying here that in the hijab finding, my participants didn't spontaneously center hijab as a defining leadership marker. So maybe future research could examine whether this holds across different professional sectors, contexts, and generational cohorts. And finally, also maybe a faith-informed mentorship model. We can have, that could be a future study, future research, and a future longitudinal study over 5 to 10 years on how the theory that I just came up with, TVBIL, can evolve as business stabilizes and spiritual growth deepens. And that's it. And this is my conclusion. Um, You basically heard everything. I don't think I really need to repeat it myself again. And again, I just want to end with saying, verily, with hardship comes ease. With hardship comes ease. God said this to us twice. So anytime there's any hardship, we know that ease is coming. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Asia, for this powerful work. Thank you for elevating the voices of these Muslim leaders. Thank you for putting things together. Thank you for enriching the literature with all of these information in the missing pieces. Um, Such a great presentation. It's my great honor again to share this work. I have been working with Asia on this project for many days and months and so on. And we have been discussing several questions and informal conversation, and now we will open it up for the committee members to share if they have any questions to enrich this work. But before that, we would like to start with words of appreciation from Dr. Amanda or Dr. Sonia.
Dr. Amanda, go ahead.
Thank you. Aasiyah, excellent work. I'm so proud of you. You were so respectful to the stories of these women, and the way you presented everything just really with so much grace, and I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to having a discussion, but just overall, outstanding.
Thank you so much.
I echo Dr. Wickramasinghe and Dr. Hania's wonderful words of encouragement that you've done this, you've walked this, you're in entrepreneurship, you're a global leader, and not many people can say that. And so thank you for opening up the path of opportunity, of mentorship, of tawakkul for everybody around the world. And I'm so grateful and honored and blessed to be a member of your committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for these great words. And now let's go into the deep analysis of the dissertation and let's open it up for Q&A. Anyone wants to get started?
Dr. Sonia, do you want to just take turns going back and forth?
I would love to. Thank you. So, oh yeah, really quickly. So again, wonderful presentation. I love reading your paper. Great research. Could you share with us a little bit about how authenticity and authentic leadership was a factor in this, and what kind of responsibilities these women felt in their journey? Like, what accountability are they assessing, and how does that reflect in their communities that they're serving?
Can you repeat that question one more time? Sorry, my brain is like processing the presentation.
Of course, of
Thank
course. So, looking at accountability, how do they identify accountability? And then in that respect, how does their accountability mechanism reflect in their community? And how do they see themselves as responsible for the needs of their communities?
Okay. I'm just going to write this down for myself so I can see what you just said. All right. So with the accountability, theocentric accountability, so basically I feel like you're talking about right here, theocentric accountability, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
that kind of came up. Yeah. So for me, the first thing is that the participants were saying to me that they answer to God first, to Allah first. They're not answering to, markets or shareholders. They're really holding to the trust that they have. Like, this is what I'm trusting that God's going to take care of this. I am trusting that I'm only answerable to God. And so when they talked to me about that, that was their accountability. And the fact that they identified accountability with authenticity of, I'm just gonna believe in what, in what, God has for me. And I think for me, like when I was really getting into this, I kind of wanted to create this model. Um, One thing that I really noticed was that they were looking into God. There was a lot of talk about God consciousness, that they felt like they didn't have to find themselves, that they really felt like, you can have any possibility without having to compromise who you are. And for that, authenticity of I'm who I am. I'm going to come into this and know that I'm accountable to God. I'm accountable, knowing that for whatever work I'm doing, this is what's going to take me to where I need to be. And I don't know if I'm answering your question completely because I'm trying to figure out how to answer it. But that's what they're doing. And in the community, the needs of their community, they're really trying to make sure that, their community is not like their customer base, right? Community is the reason why they have a business. They are motivated by the community. They're motivated by what other people need, other Muslims need. Um, for example, like my participant donating ticket revenues and other participants that are saying that, whatever I'm doing in my business is not separate from the way that I engage with my community. And so that is where the theocentric accountability comes from, because ultimately they know at the end of the day, God is watching, and I need to make sure that my business is in alignment with what I'm doing for the community and also what I'm doing for those that I serve.
Thank you. And a follow-up to that, does that matter in terms of a nonprofit or a startup and your participants coming from a variety of industries? Does that matter, or is it all the same from pivoting from industry to industry, from market to market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it matters whether it doesn't matter which industry you're in, what market you're in. I honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, although this is a focus on Muslim women entrepreneurs, this is something that every Muslim who even has a career, maybe they're working in a company, um,
Mhm.
they may not have their own business, but they may be working for a company, or they may be working in different aspects of whatever it is that they're doing. This accountability and authenticity has to be there across all fields, across all sectors. Um, the focus is obviously on entrepreneurs, because if you have a business, now you're even held to a more higher standard of I have to make sure that I'm providing a service to these people, that I'm being honest, that I'm being ethical, that I'm not doing something that can cause them harm. And then, but when you put it from that bigger frame of what, markets, different sectors, different fields, it's the same thing. You're not going to walk into a workplace and be like, oh, okay, I get to just, if somebody's going to slack off, I'm going to do the same thing. No, you're going to be like, okay, this is what I was told to do, and this is my job, and I'm going to go and do what I need to do, but I may even want to go above and beyond that, right? And so I think that this framework goes even beyond just being an entrepreneur, like in every sector, in every field. This accountability, authenticity, being who you are is very important. And I think that the more we have our accountability in place, and the more unapologetic we are of being who we are while we're working, while we're running a business, while we're, doing things. Yeah, absolutely. It's
Thank
important.
Okay, Dr. Sonia, do you think that we need to elaborate further on this in any part
I
of the
think that the
manuscript?
if she uses an example in the yes, in the conclusion recommendations, I think it's valuable because as it is right now,
Okay.
it might need to be a little bit lengthened. So yeah, if she includes a few sentences regarding that, what you just said in the respect and accountability and authenticity, I think it adds value. Absolutely. And I'm happy to help you with that.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, so for this model under like accountability, if we can probably add a little bit here, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. Not that much. Because I see that this has been really elaborated further in the findings where faith is the center of every action they do. But yeah, maybe in this model we can add
Oh, you want me
one
to add it?
sentence or so.
You want me to add it into the model itself, like this model, or do you want me to just add it into paper?
Dr. Sonia, what do you recommend?
I would just say in the conclusion,
Okay.
in
Okay,
your chapter 5 at the very end,
okay, cool.
because you're pointing the way to the future. You're talking about the future and what future research might encompass. So it's good to have that elaborating the framework.
Okay, I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Amanda.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sonia, for that suggestion. Asia, my questions to you are more philosophical. And I want to start off by saying the last 20 years of my professional life, I have worked with several women who are Muslim leaders. They are exemplary in terms of what they do, how they present themselves, their devotion and respect to their community, and three of my dearest friends are also of the Islamic religion. So I am familiar with it from that context. And I've also learned so much from Dr. Hania and from you and Dr. Sonia. So I'm coming from that angle. So the first recommendation I have for you is for chapter 4 at the beginning. The whole premise of your study is to explore the lived experiences of Muslim women who are entrepreneurs. And you need to construct your own narrative in terms of how is entrepreneurship defined by these 12 women.
Okay.
And that should be at the onset of your chapter 4.
Got it.
Because that has a different meaning, especially because of this new framework that you created, where faith is the cornerstone. And so I would recommend at the beginning of chapter 4, after you have your introduction on page 94 specifically, to include their meaning, the collective meaning that you found of entrepreneurship by these women. Okay.
Oh, got it.
The second, as a follow-up to that, within the same token there, you don't disclose the participants, the 12 participants, their age ranges, and that's okay. That's not necessary. But I would imagine, depending on the generation that they're from, and given that Muslim women operate more from that collectivist mindset and community-based perspective, generational differences are probably an important consideration of how they position themselves in the world as well. And so I would recommend for you to just include that in a few sentences. If there's a range of different, the women that you interviewed, their age ranges, if that's possible for you to incorporate, and if there's any generational differences between how they were taught. Because to me, from what I read, it seems like they did have influences in terms of their mothers, their aunties, all that has a interplay in terms of
Yeah.
how they lead, right, as an entrepreneur. And so my second suggestion would be for chapter 4 to include about their influence, especially in terms of the generations that they're from.
Okay. Like in what part of the chapter? Like before the data analysis or like maybe after the data analysis?
I would include it around page 99, right after your demographics chart, because
Okay.
that's the one part you're missing. You have the date that you've interviewed them and the participants and their respective industry that they belong to, but there's not really an age range. And I would imagine that has a factor.
I think
Okay.
we discussed this earlier, Aasiyah. But yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Amanda. That's a good point.
Mhm.
Because yeah, generation across generation in the family has an impact
Yeah.
on their leadership practices. Thank you. Dr. Sonia.
Thank you. And adding to Dr. Amanda's beautiful comments and amazing work, I think with the phenomenology, you should also talk about the global leadership implications. That is the degree that you're earning. So you might as well speak about those implications and also the theme that you might want to consider for policy, right? So with respect to like ADL and Ihsan, what are some of the policy recommendations that cities, jurisdictions, and all the other laws could have in place? Because when you're starting a business, Tawakkul is your model is going to guide them. But what if I'm in Texas versus LA versus Orange County, or
Right.
other jurisdictions? So I think a policy framework using Tawakkul is important, especially for faith-based organizations and those nonprofits that are integrating faith-based methods into their operations. And then one more thing, could you also add with respect to policy and global leadership? I also recommend talking about zakat. In our faith, we talk about having charitable contributions and the
Yeah.
financial aspect. So can they actually make ends meet? And using the tawakkul model that you're recommending, how does that inform future recommendations for zakat and how we make financial charitable contributions annually?
And
Okay.
what page? Do you know the
In
page number?
chapter 5.
Okay,
You
in the conclusion.
Mhm.
in the conclusion, do you
Awesome.
want to put some implications
Chapter
or
4, when I was adding to Dr. Amanda's point, was about general, how does that like look at policy? Like your participants, they're in different jurisdictions. So how does
Mhm.
that inform policy of where they start their businesses and how they look at law and policy and how they have to be mindful of taxation and all the other things that are like the reality of the business itself. And
Okay.
then for chapter 5, maybe talk about zakat and how they donate money to charities or how they give back. But because you've used so many of these good Islamic philosophies,
Yeah.
zakat is also really important. We can't like not include zakat.
No, no, of course. And I do, since I do talk about it, that makes sense. So yeah.
Mhm.
Thank
I
you.
think further elaboration because
Yeah,
Asia, for others who are going to read your manuscript, they may not have a better understanding of what these words mean. So probably a little bit elaboration that would be helpful.
That's true, especially because there's zakat and then there's sadaqah.
Mm-hmm.
Difference. Yeah, okay.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
So I'll just put that in my notes to discuss the differences too between both.
Great point. Don't worry about the notes. I'm writing the notes, and also the session is being recorded.
Okay.
Okay, so now moving forward for Dr. Amanda.
Okay, Asia. My next point to you is around page 106 and onwards, where you have the themes and keywords. So when I read the narratives from your participants, it seems to me that, uh, at least based on my interpretation, they're very much operating from the Eastern philosophy.
Hmm.
Although they may practice here in the West, it's very much connected to Eastern philosophy and Eastern ways of thinking. And so, within the narratives, I think it would be advantageous, especially before you have your chapter conclusion, to allude to that, because certainly based on their narratives, the themes have always been about the others, being cognizant of the communities, the importance of serving and giving back to the communities, the importance of faith. And so I certainly believe that you can connect it to the Eastern philosophy literature, because that's another gap that you're essentially filling as part of the body of research that you're producing here, right? And so I would recommend for you to have at least a paragraph or two within chapter 4, just connecting it back. Although you have your conceptual frameworks that guided your study, connecting it back to the larger umbrella of Eastern philosophy, and where community is the cornerstone, and elaborating on how several of these women, although they may be based here or in other parts of the world, they still very much operate from Eastern philosophy and Eastern lenses. Okay.
Yeah, okay. And you wanted me to add this in chapter 4?
Yes, I think it would be particularly helpful at the very end of chapter 4, connecting all of your different themes together.
Okay.
Okay. And then my next point before I yield the floor back to Dr. Sonia is for, okay, here we go, page 135. So again, the themes and keywords, this is beautifully done in terms of connecting it back to Arabic, and just essentially merging the two worlds, if you will. However, I do think in order for table 8 on page 135 to be a little bit more rich,
Hmm.
it might be advantageous for you to describe these Arabic phrases more in depth. And the
Okay.
reason I say that is because we all know, for those of us who speak different languages, that it doesn't necessarily translate directly. And there's a lot more context when you're transferring a certain meaning from one language to another. And so I would recommend to add a little bit more context around the nature of each of these different themes that's in Arabic.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Sonia, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Dr. Amanda. Last consideration from me, and then I'm done. With respect to mentorship, For whom, by whom. We have many incredible leaders in your study who probably didn't have many mentors in their careers. And now they
Yeah.
feel a responsibility and obligation, right, from your second pillar here, to give back. But what about how mentorship evolves? Do we look at mentorship like a band-aid situation, or do we look at mentorship as faith-based? That I want to help elevate your faith. I want to increase your faith to be, like you said, beyond entrepreneurship, just being an employee. So,
Mm.
in what context is this mentorship appropriate? Because sometimes we have mentors, there's a conflict of interest, right? We don't want to get too personal. We want to keep it professional. In other cases, we do need that mentor who's personal, who's like a mother, an aunt figure, a sibling, an older sister, a colleague. So, speak about the paradigms, if you wish, in chapter 5 of the types of mentorship that are relevant and how that elevates community and how that looks at Shura and Rahma, because we go to a mosque or a new city and we feel like we're being taken advantage of. We're asked
Mm.
to volunteer our time as, doing our obligations. And other times it's like, oh well, why haven't you volunteered 10 hours? So, Dr. Ghazi did 15 hours of community service in one day. Where were you? So looking at mentorship from that dynamic and that paradigm of social capital versus, interpersonal reflection and those dynamics would be critical. And that's all I have. And I'm going to help you, and we're going to help you with these. Like, these are just things that we say, but we're going to help you for the final revision.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
Um,
muted.
I want to echo what Dr. Sonia said. I
Thank
think
you.
what we're sharing here is just to help you further elevate the manuscript before it's published, so represents you well, Aasiyah. So please know that we're all here to support and help you do the best work possible. Okay, I have a couple things for chapter 5, and then I'll turn the time back to Dr. Hania. So you shared very well in terms of your presentation about how that your findings aligned with the literature. However, in order for research to be robust, there has to be a divergence as well, where you have to, within the narrative, include perhaps areas that still do not align accordingly. And so, in addition to your alignment with the conceptual frameworks, there should be a narrative on the divergence as well, because that's the whole point of producing work like this. So someone else can read this and say, okay, so although this is where her findings align, there's still a gap here. Maybe I can pick this up and do this part of the work. And so there has to be a particular section on the divergence of the literature as well. So I would encourage you to build that out with Dr. Hania's advice and include that as part of your chapter 5. Okay.
Okay, I will do that.
The
Great
second,
point. Thank you. Especially this topic is kind of, yeah, missing, and some people look at it from different ways. Yeah, from a different lens. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you so much, Amanda.
absolutely.
Dr. Amanda.
Good one.
Um, and for page 175, for your theory of for the framework that you created as from your work that you've done. So I would recommend you have a very robust argument for the macro level, which is level 1. But in order for a framework to be robust, you have to look at it from the micro, the meso, and the macro. So, especially with the meso in terms of how attitude and social norms get changed, right? And so my recommendation is to have like 3 levels where one is the micro, the second is meso, and then third will be the macro where you're holistically looking at the framework because that
Okay.
shows applicability in all different lenses. Okay. Then I'm just scrolling so I don't forget. Okay, bear with me. Uh, Oh, here we go. And this goes back to the point that Dr. Sonia made about you are pursuing a PhD in global leadership. So there has to be more context there. Page 184 onwards, I would imagine with your findings, women from different parts of the world can relate, although the specific demographic here is Muslim women leaders. I'm certain women from South Asia, women from other parts of the Middle East, women from Asia, they can all relate to some of these core pillars that you found. And so, as from page 187 onwards, before you introduce your theory of values-based Islamic leadership, write at least a page or two, and I'll defer to Dr. Hania to guide you in terms of how your findings can be applicable to women across the globe,
Okay.
especially those who come from societies where women are not necessarily represented as leaders, and what they can learn as well. Okay, so construct that narrative or this application from women from the global standpoint. And you can break it into a multitude of different sections, right? You can do the global south versus global north, however you want to construct that would I think would be appropriate and helpful to your study for other women to learn from.
So, Dr. Amanda, I have a comment because like if we we can have like a one paragraph, but I think it would be complicated if we look into like different regions, different countries. They have different laws, different, ways of conducting or letting different people start business. So there are different regulations. So with that being said, I mean the goal for this study is to look at Muslim leaders within the US where this was very helpful maybe for other regions to look into it, but it's not necessarily that they can exactly follow what's been there because like there is a specific context and there is a variety variations and differences.
And absolutely, I don't disagree one bit, Dr. Hania. My impetus for that comment was in terms of lessons learned that other women can also
Sure.
understand from and identify if I want to pursue my own business, here's something I can learn from. So look at it
Yeah.
from that angle, not so much country specific and focus, but more holistically in
Yeah.
terms of what can we as women leaders learn from each
If
other.
we want to come here or start a business. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the clarity.
Thank you for that question. Okay. And then two more points, Azia. For your implications, given that this is focusing on um, business, if you will, and women
Mhm.
who are business owners, it might be helpful for you to have, and you have several implications here for coaching, mentorship, organizational leaders, policymakers. But it might be helpful for you to have implications on organizational behavior as well,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
especially
cool
because
one.
women now we're still making strides here in the US with women becoming leaders and having high levels of positions. And so it might be helpful to have a particular section on organizational behavior, and you can connect that to your implications for mentorship as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And my final comment to you is page 195. I would include uh, a researcher's reflection here, especially because you are a leader, you are a Muslim woman, and you have done a lot of great work the last many years of your professional life. So I would also incorporate what you have learned as someone who has pursued two different doctorates and this journey, and perhaps even include some of your aha moments.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I was gonna do that and I didn't do it because I was just, I was like, I have to
We need
think.
to get done. Yep.
Yeah, I had some aha moments, so I'll definitely want to talk about that.
Great point. Thank you so much. Dr. Sonia, do you have any additional question?
I do not. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we are 3:33 now. We're just gonna open it up for one question from or comment from the audience since we have so many audience. Just whoever gonna raise their hands first or write in the chat box. Chat box.
I see like so many of you congratulating me. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you.
So no more question for you. That's it. Wait,
Well, does anyone have comments at least? Y'all can
I see a question from Travis.
oh, there you go.
Okay, could the micro and meso viewpoints be added in the future development, or do you think it's imperative to include with the macro presently? Can you address this question, Asia?
You know, that's a good question. I feel like it could be added into the future development. Micro and meso because because you have the macro. So the macro is the theory of values. You're talking about like the model, right? You can unmute yourself if you can. I don't know if you're at work, Travis.
Yes, outstanding job. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Saturn and I both are.
Aw.
Um, yes.
But
So no, I was just speaking to Dr. Amanda's point.
yeah.
I'm just wondering, how sometimes when we roll out items, we can, roll out as a 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, like variations of your continued variations of your, ongoing work, or in her opinion, that she think is super imperative to do it now to emphasize the macro and all presented from, I guess, a 3D perspective.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it could be done in a 3D perspective, where you talk about if you're let me share my screen 1 second here. If we're talking about this, right? The TVBIL, then yeah, I mean, if this and again, maybe Dr. Manda, you could even kind of help me with this figuring this out really quickly. But with the model here, since I have this, and then obviously the tobacco resilience mechanism, um, the macro, I feel like the macro, meso, and micro would all make sense together. I just wouldn't know, honestly, which one would be considered more macro and more meso. But as far as I think what you're asking, I think it could be added in both future developments too, but I also think it would make a, I think it would make a difference in the model to add it to include it with the macro, I think. You know what I mean? So I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
I think yeah. Just because it makes sense if like let's say that these three here are the macro and maybe the meso could be the six core Islamic values, and then the micro would be the resilience mechanism.
Okay, okay, I see it.
See what I mean? So I think that would work that way. And then of course, I think what you're asking, when it says here, when you say to, have it be added in future developments, I mean, I think it could be both. It could be a future development because, models are always, I think, developing. Like you're always updating a
Mm-hmm.
model, always trying to develop it, right? So
Yeah, they evolve from like,
Okay.
from the studies, from what you do, and from like testing them out. But yeah, thank you so much. This is a great point. We'll look into it more closely. And now it's about time. So Dr. Amanda and Dr. Sonia, I just opened up the breakout room so we can do a debrief and then we stay here. Hold on. We'll be back shortly.
all right, y'all can feel free to unmute yourselves and talk a little bit.
Tia
Woohoo!
is the first one. Congratulations.
How do you feel?
You know what? I feel I'm glad I'm about to be done.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Hi,
feel good.
Aasiyah. How are you?
I
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Fatiha. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. Congratulations. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited that you guys all came. Thank you so much for coming and being just a part of my of this defense and listening in. I mean, I really appreciated it so much.
Of course.
Yeah, I really did. And Ramel, and Travis and Anthony, the three, and Stephanie, you guys. We got to get you through. So, and Thomasina, we got to get you through. We got to get you guys through. This is going to be you. I want to hear you guys for word defense when it comes true. So,
Well, you've led the way. So that's what we were waiting on, right, team?
yeah.
Right. I echo that. Your
Absolutely,
inspiration,
absolutely.
Aasiyah.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I know like all of you are in your dissertation phases right now here, and I know you're gonna get through it. Carolyn just finished hers at with Cal State Bakersfield, right, Carolyn? Hopefully, yeah, there you
Yes,
are.
yes, yes.
No.
Yeah, this is excellent. I could see the application to education as well. So I was like,
Yeah.
this would be great for student leadership, educational leadership, any kind of leadership, really.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that would be. I really wanted Dr. Noor to be here because I'm like, this is her study. She could have been able to hear it be talked about. I sent the invites to a lot of people, so but at least this is recorded, so I can always send out the video.
Yeah, this is really excellent. I was like taking notes. I was like, this is so good. And I love the way it's
Yes.
organized. It's very clear. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you
Wonderful job, Aasiyah. This
thank
is
you.
so good. You did excellent work on this. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank
Wonderful.
you. Lashonda, thank you. Listen, this was you last week, girl.
This was me last week.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Jessica, Aasiyah, it's good to see you.
Oh my gosh, Charlotta. Girl,
I made it.
you made it. I'm so glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you. Proud of you. Great job. I see your people are back. Let me get off here.
Okay, Aasiyah, are you there?
Yes.
Ready to hear the great news?
Wait, I think your microphone went down.
My microphone?
Like I can't, yeah, it got like the voice got low or something.
Okay, don't worry. How
There
about
we go.
now?
Yes, much better.
Awesome. Congratulations! Yay!
Thank you.
You pass with modification, but these modifications are really, again, just to strengthen your work. It just, yeah, I capture all of these comments are the same comments that, we have touched on. So we're
Okay.
going to work on these comments together
Yay.
and revise the manuscript, and we'll see you soon in the week, like in the graduation ceremony.
Yes.
Yes, taking more vectors.
Thank you. Graduation's on the 23rd this Saturday. I can't believe it. We did it this
Yes.
close to graduation.
Yes, yes, yes. Congratulations again, Mabruk.
Oh my gosh. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Misty. I'm gonna see you later tonight. So thank
Cool. Any last words from the committee members?
I'm just so grateful and honored again, Dr. Ghazi. I mean, I've seen this journey with you since 2018, so it's about 8.5 years now. I've been your colleague, I've been your instructor, I've been your friend, and I will continue this relationship moving forward. So whatever support I can offer for you, I know some fellowships that you'd be really well qualified for. So I hope you'll take that into consideration. Just thank you for what you're doing. You also made me feel seen at GSEP with the center, with Dr. Miramontes and all you that you've done. So thank you for making me a proud Muslim woman. Thank you, and inshallah we'll be blessed. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Sonia. Sonia, you were actually, can I just tell you, you were the first person that got me into publishing because when I worked with you and Dr. Opong on that first, for me, it was that first article that, we published together. I mean, and that was, I think, when was it, like 2018, 2019, when we started the first year that I started that program? Like, I will never forget working with you. I think you've been the most inspirational person for me throughout this journey. And to have you not only as just like my fellow peer when we were, together, and then having you also become my professor when I was in the PhD program here. Now I can say was because we about to graduate. So we are PhD finished. But when, having you as my professor and teaching us how to be published and how to put ourselves in these different journals and stuff. I mean, I've learned so much from you. I just want to say thank you. You have been definitely there with me since I started this program. And I'm just so happy to have you on in this journey and forever, Habibti, forever, Azizam, forever. Yeah.
Okay,
Of
so now
course. Much
it's
love and
time.
gratitude. Thank you.
It's time for Dr. Amanda to say her words, and then we're gonna have like a group picture.
Dr. Ghazi, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. This is not an easy milestone to reach. So I hope you have some fun plans here to celebrate this amazing accomplishment. And I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you the past few years. And I look forward to all the great things you're going to be doing in the future.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Amanda. You've been so amazing since I've known you with doing all the work that you do for GSEP and just beyond. So we got to get together when you're here visiting.
Awesome. So lots of heart smiles. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate you. Now let's go take a break because you got the next one coming up.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hania. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you, everyone. Nice
Thank
seeing
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Dr.
much for
Amanda.
being part of this
Bye-bye.
work.
Sama, thank you. Thank you so much for being there for me in this whole journey. I love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Love you all. Bye. Thank you all for coming and supporting Dr. Ghazi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Do you want to say something to Dr. Ghazi before we leave?
Congratulations. Mabruk.
Mabruk.
Everyone's so excited and happy for you. Mabruk. Mabruk.
Oh,
Mashallah, congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Ruqayyah. Thank you. Can't wait to see you guys.
Well deserved.
Mabruk,
Oh, Fatiha's here.
mabruk.
Hi, Fatiha.
Hi, mabruk. Hi,
Mabruk.
Ania. Good to see you all. All the best to
Goodbye.
others. Yeah.
Oh, good to see you, Fatiha. All the best to you too,
Thank you
inshallah.
so much. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yes.
July. My turn.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. We're gonna
Thank
see
you
you.
guys.
You're gonna
See
be you're gonna graduate in July, Fatiha. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay, well, we can have to
Okay,
come to
send
your
a stamp
graduation.
invite
Yeah.
so
Yes.
we can
I
support
will.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And everyone else,
Thank you
share
all.
with us. Bye.
Bye-bye.